Zealand Judge Lowell Goddard was appointed as the chair of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse last year. She sent a letter to the leaders of 18 religious institutions in the UK, instructing them to preserve any documents or notes that could assist her investigation. There are claims this weekend from lawyers and survivors of abuse that the Jehovah's Witness organization ordered the destruction of material that would be relevant to the Goddard inquiry. John Viney was a Jehovah's Witness for over 50 years. He also served as an elder, a pastoral leader within the movement. And he believes that what happened in the case of his daughter Karen may be typical of this organization's response to child sexual abuse allegations within its ranks.
She was abused by a Jehovah's Witness elder who also was a relation. This was over 20 years ago, and it has taken the best part of 20 years to get justice for her, and so the abuser at the moment is currently serving 14 years imprisonment.
Rather than receiving support from the organization, John says the elders shunned both him and his family.
We received no help from Jehovah's Witnesses, and I think this was perhaps the start of my own downfall within Jehovah's Witnesses. Is when I saw what I thought was a loving, supportive organization, I experienced something completely different from that. I saw people running away, and I saw my daughter and my own family being treated as troublemakers because this thing had been raised. And that's led me really to look at other situations, because I have thought, well, surely, the way we were treated, the way my daughter was treated, is that a one-off? And sadly, I find that that is just not the case. And I even hate to say it, but I would say it, that right now I think Jehovah's Witnesses have an epidemic of child abuse within their midst.
In Karen's case, did they cooperate with the police with the investigation in any significant way?
The quick answer is no. I have met up just this week with the investigating officer over another matter, and he reminded me of just how uncooperative they were, by saying, first of all, they wouldn't give statements, they would not provide any evidence, they would not give over any documents, or said that they didn't have documents, which it makes the relevance of this Goddard inquiry even more important.
If the Jehovah's Witnesses have no documents to provide in cases like John's daughter Karen, where are those documents? Sunday has obtained a copy of an order sent to every Jehovah's Witness congregation in the country. It's called the 2015 Checklist for Audit of Files. But this communication from the headquarters of the movement is more than a checklist. It's an instruction to destroy the kinds of documents the Goddard inquiry is after. Kathleen Hallisey is a senior associate with the law firm AO Advocates. Last year, she represented a victim of sexual abuse in the UK's first ever civil case brought against the Jehovah's Witnesses.
The directives come from the US, where the headquarters are located, and that's an audit and a destruction of various types of documents that would have been retained by the elders in the congregation. And therefore, any documents in relation to an allegation of child abuse that would be contained within elders' notes would have been destroyed per the direction of this audit checklist. I think that the documents that the elders in that checklist have been instructed to destroy are in fact documents that are highly relevant to the Goddard inquiry, and are in fact documents that should not have been destroyed. My fear is that it's too late.
I've been with the organization all of my life. I was raised as a third generation Jehovah's Witness, so I didn't really know anything other than that. And then I became an elder at age of 27.
In 2002, Ross Blackman left the Jehovah's Witnesses disillusioned by the direction the movement was taking. He's now a minister in the Church of Scotland. But while he was a Jehovah's Witness elder, he served as congregational secretary, and one of his tasks, he says, was to supervise the destruction of notes made by elders taking part in a judicial committee, a kind of congregational court, where serious disciplinary matters, including child abuse allegations, were investigated.
a determination would have been come to by the three elders that were involved in the case, and they would have filled in a form. If I recall rightly, I think it was the S77 form. They had numbers for them all. So the S77 form would have been filled in with details on who had been in the committee, who was being disfellowshipped, for example, and a very terse reason for why that might have been. That form would have been sent up to the headquarters for being processed there. And at that stage, any of the notes that had been made, the personal notes that had been made by the elders on that judicial case, would certainly have been destroyed. And a reminder would be given to that effect on a fairly regular basis, either at the elders' meetings or certainly when the travelling overseer, who would come every 6 months, came around, they would be reminding people to destroy these personal notes that they might have made. And ostensibly the Data Protection Act was invoked with regards to that. That was certainly the reason we were given for that at the time, I seem to recall. But the reality was there was quite a bit of incriminating information within the files.
Could a serious and well-founded concern about their responsibilities under the Data Protection Act explain why a religious organization would not only sanction but demand the wholesale destruction of documents relating to child sexual abuse allegations? The legal analyst Joshua Rosenberg.
I think the Jehovah's Witnesses need to point to the section of the Data Protection Act which requires them to destroy information, because I certainly can't find one. There is a provision which says that if somebody has data about you and it's inaccurate, you can ask a court to order its destruction. But the Data Protection Act, as the name implies, is there to protect data, not to destroy data. In any event, it doesn't normally cover information that's recorded on paper. And this checklist that you've sent me, it says that everything stated below relates to information stated on paper or electronically. So I would be surprised if there was any requirement in the Data Protection Act to destroy information. And of course, when you take that in connection with the Inquiries Act, which has been law for more than 10 years, and says that if an inquiry is held, it can require information, and if you destroy information that the inquiry requires, you can be committing an offence. Well, taking the two together, it looks as if the Jehovah's Witnesses have got a certain amount of explaining to do.
So there's no doubt in Joshua Rosenberg's mind that any concerns a congregation may have are trumped by an order from this inquiry to retain all relevant documents. Indeed, the guidance sent out to religious organizations by Justice Goddard says as much. Why then were Jehovah's Witnesses being told last year to destroy all those documents before the end of December, after they had been told by the Goddard inquiry in June to hold on to them?
If you were to have had documents, let's say at the beginning of last year, and then destroyed them after you got a letter in June last year from Lowell Goddard, you would have a very great deal of explaining to do, wouldn't you? Because that letter puts you on notice, even if you were not familiar with the law, that she wants to see these documents, and you better hang on to them, otherwise she'll want to know why you didn't.
And that explanation may need to be legally quite robust, because deliberate failure to comply with an inquiry's order is a criminal offence. We invited the Jehovah's Witnesses to respond to these very serious claims on today's programme. They declined our invitation and gave us a statement instead.
We're pleased to confirm that our direction to all congregations in England and Wales is compliant with the terms of the Goddard inquiry. Congregation elders diligently abide by legal responsibilities that rest upon them. This is in harmony with the Bible principle found at Romans 13:1. Elders provide abuse victims and their families with spiritual comfort from the Bible. The victim and his or her parents have the absolute right to report the matter to the governmental authorities. We are committed to doing all we can to prevent child abuse and to provide spiritual comfort to any who have suffered from this terrible sin and crime.
You'll notice that this statement makes no reference whatsoever to the issue of retaining or destroying documents that may be of use to the Goddard inquiry. When we asked the Jehovah's Witnesses to explain what they have done with those sensitive documents, they told us they have nothing further to add to their statement. Meanwhile, 20 years after his daughter was abused by a Jehovah's Witness elder, John Viney says it's past time that this religious organization stopped closing ranks and started putting the welfare of children first.
No one is suggesting, and I'm certainly not suggesting, that all Jehovah's Witnesses are child abusers or that they are making a last-ditch effort to get rid of evidence. And so I believe that they should have sent a different message out saying, we want to cooperate with the Goddard inquiry, so please keep your personal notes, and any judicial meetings you hold with potential abusers, you will need to retain and maybe use in evidence.
John Viney, and we'll obviously keep you up to date when we learn more about the Goddard inquiry's attitude to what's been revealed this morning. But that's it from this week's Sunday. If you'd like to comment on today's programme, you can email sunday@bbc.co.uk. Edward Sturton will be back in the chair next week. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.